Hi, in today's review video number 2, we're going to be looking at page 325 and 326, volume 2 of Envision for topic 8, reviewing for tomorrow's assessment. So this is the practice. We're going to, they're asking us to draw a model to show that 3/4 equals 6/8. So remember, you can do an area model, you can do a number line, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So I'm starting with 3/4. I've got 4 equal parts, so I shade 3 of those, and I need to show that that equals 4/6. I can do one of two things. I can either change this and I can make this into eighths, or I can draw one right below it showing the same thing. Okay, this is my 4 equal pieces, but I need 8 pieces, so I know that if I divide each piece in half, now I have 8, and I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I see that that's equal to 6/8. Or if I show that up here, if I divide each one of these, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shaded out of my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they are equal. Number 2, Leslie will use more than 1/2 cup, but less than 1 whole cup of flour for a recipe. What fraction of a cup might Leslie use? So she's going to use more than 1/2, but less than a whole. So here's our whole cup. Here's 1/2. So she's going to use more than 1/2. Here's 1/2. But less than a whole. So maybe this is what she's going to use. Let's mark this. And what I've done is just divide this into 4 equal parts. So my shaded part is for 1/2 is 2/4, but I need to use more than 1/2 but less than a whole. So maybe she's using 3/4. All right, so remember, 1/2 is like a benchmark, as well as 1 whole, something in between. Could have been 2/3. There are lots of different 3/5. All right, number 3, Jared has mowed 2/5 of the yard. Abby says that Jason has mowed 4/6 of the yard. Is Abby correct? So in other words, they want to know, is 2/5 equal to 4/6? That's our question. Well, we know that we can find out if they're equivalent fractions by multiplying. And I know that 2 times 2 is 4. So that means 5 times 2 must equal this number here, which would need to be a 10 for those to be equal. So no, she's not correct. Number 4 says, explain how to use division to find an equivalent fraction for 9/12. So 9/12 in division, I need an equal common factor. All right, so I know that 9 and 12 both have 3 in common. Divide both by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So an equivalent fraction for 9/12 would be 3/4. Now the reason, excuse me, remember, we can find equivalent fractions by multiplying or dividing, and they've asked us to use division. All right, number 5, write 2 fractions that are equivalent to 3/6. Describe how you can show they are equivalent. So remember, 3/6, we can divide or we can multiply. If we divide 3/6 by a common factor, we would have to use 3, which would give us 1/2. So 3/6 and 1/2 are equivalent. We could also multiply by any number. Let's just choose 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. We get 6/12. All right, we can show their equivalent by drawing fraction bars. I happen to have my fraction bars here to show you rather than drawing them, but of course you would need to draw them to show that on a, here's the sixth, then we have twelfths, and we have halves. So we're going to start with, we started with 3/6, which would end here, 1, 2, 3, 6. Then we would show that that equals a half, and then that equals 6/12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all equivalent. All right. Back to number 6. Compare the fractions to 1/2. Write each fraction in the correct answer space. 5/4. I know when I'm looking at a numerator that is larger than the denominator, that's more than one whole, because 4 out of 4 pieces or parts makes one whole, and we have 5 parts. So this one is going to be greater than 1/2. 5/10. I know that 5 is half of 10. That makes that equal to 1/2. 2/12. I know that 2 parts out of 12 is a very small amount. I can even divide that by 2 and get 1. Divide this by 12 by 2 and get 6. 1/6 is far less than 1/2. Remember, if the numerators are the same and the denominators are compared, this would be a much smaller piece. The greater number would be the smaller piece. 6/12. Well, 6 is half of 12. So this one is equivalent to or equal to 1/2. 3/8. 3 is less than half of 8. Half of 8 would be 4/8, which would be exactly a half, so this is less than a half. And 2/3. 2 is more than a half of 3. Half of 3 is 1 1/2, so it's more, so it's going to be greater than a half. Sarah and Cole both ordered large subs for lunch. Sarah had half a sub and Cole had 2/5 of a sub. Who ate more? Now remember, if we take half of our denominator, half of 5 is 2 1/2. 2 1/2, which is an odd fraction, we don't usually do that. 2 1/2 would be the same thing as a half. We only have 2 parts, so 2/5 is going to be less than Sarah's half a sub. So the subs are different sizes, so it is impossible to compare the fractions and tell who ate more is not correct. We can compare them. Sarah ate more than Cole, as 2/5 is less than 1/2 is correct. Sarah's sub was bigger than Cole, so Sarah ate more. Sarah ate more than Cole, as 2/5 is less than. Okay, that seems correct, but it's not, because Sarah ate more. It is correct. What that we really needed to say is a half is greater than 2/5. I think that might be okay, but Sarah's sub was bigger than Cole, so Sarah ate more. That's true. They ate the same amount. That is not true. So, moving on. Number 8. The Sahas were reading a best-selling novel as a family. After the first week, they checked in with each other to see how much of the book each had read. Mr. Saha read 2/6, Mrs. Saha read 1/3, Maddie read 3/4, George read 2/3. Who read the greatest fraction of the book? Well, looking at them, I'm going to compare these to my benchmarks, and I'm going to see that 2/6 is less than a half. 1/3 is also less than 1/2. 3/4 is a benchmark, and it is greater than 1/2. And 2/3 is also greater than 1/2. And I do remember that 2/3 is less than 3/4 from my benchmark work. We would be looking at, here's 2/3, whereas 3/4 would look like this. So who read the greatest amount? Maddie with 3/4. Name the 2 family members who read the same fraction of the book and explain. Okay, so I know that these 2 are not the same, and I know they're both greater than a half, and I know these 2 are less than a half. So let's compare these 2 and see if they're the same. 2 6. We're going to divide by 2 because that's our common factor and see what happens. See if we get 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. We get 1/3. So Mr. and Mrs. Saha both read the same amount. Number 9, Johnny found a fraction equivalent to the one shown by the point on the number line. Which fraction could Johnny have found? Explain. Well, let's see. 1/4 because 2/8 divided by 2 is 1/4. 4 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. That's correct. 1/8 because 4/8 minus 3/8. We cannot subtract. That's not going to show us anything. 1/2 because 4/8 divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. What did I do up here? 4. This is incorrect. See, I went too quickly. 4 divided by 2 is not 1. It's 2. So that one's not correct. Don't rush through these. I almost missed number 9. All right, number 9, C, 1/2 because 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And that one is correct. 7/8 because 4/8 plus 3/8. We don't add them to find equivalency. Remember, multiply or divide by the same number. 4/8 is equivalent to 1/2. Another way to check, 4 is half of 8. All right, number 10, Bill and Gina each ate 1/2 of their own pizza. Bill ate more pizza than Gina. Draw a picture and explain how that is possible. Not all halves are the same. They are the same as the other half of their half, but they are not the same as another half of another whole. In other words, this could be Bill's pizza. He could have gotten the large pizza, and Gina could have ordered the personal pan small pizza. So her half is not the same size as Bill's. Bill could have eaten more by just ordering and having a larger pizza. All right, number 11, order 5/8, 1/2, 2/3, and 2/5 from least to greatest. So I want to remember my benchmarks. I know that I'm just going to glance at these and know that 5/8 is greater than a half. We have a half. 2/3 is greater than a half. 2/5 is less than half. So 2/5 would be the least because it's the only one that's less than a half. Then I do have a half. And then I have 2/3 and 5/8 that I'm comparing. They're both greater than a half. So I need to find out which is greater or which is least. So 5/8 is just 1/8 more than a half. 2/3 is a half of a third. So what we might need to do is make equivalent fractions of these. Compare equal fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I need 5/8 and 2/3. We can easily look at our fraction bars and find this one, but I don't have the eighths. Let's see. So we're going to draw a picture, or we're going to make them have the same denominator. When you're comparing the same number of pieces, then you can easily compare them. So 8 times 3 is 24. I just wanted to use both factors. They don't have anything in common, so we're going to multiply them times each other. And then 5 times 3 would be 15. So if we were to write 5/8 in 24, divided into 24 pieces, we'd have 15. If we do the same for 2/3, 3 times 8 is 24, so 2 times 8 is 16. So our 2/3 is slightly greater than our 5/8. That's a very close one. Oops, I wanted to use 16/24. Let's go back to our original 2/3. Okay, so sometimes we have to just put them, it can be comparing the same thing, so the same number of pieces. And then number 12, only one of the comparisons below is correct. Which is correct? What benchmark was used to check your answer? 2/3 is less than 1/2. I used a half as a benchmark. This is not true because I know that 2/3 is greater than a half. When I use a half benchmark, I know that I'm going past the 1/2 when I find 2/3. 1/2 is equal to 3/5. I use 1/4 as a benchmark. That's not true because they are not equivalent. 2/3 is less than 9/10. I use 3/4 as a benchmark. This sounds reasonable. Let's look at that. 3/4 is our benchmark. 2/3 is slightly less than 3/4, but 9/10 is greater than 3/4 because it's almost one whole. So that would be correct. 3/4 is less than 2/3, and I used 1/2 as a benchmark. It's not the correct benchmark, plus it's not even true. We know that 3/4 is greater than 2/3, so that one won't work either. Now draw a model to compare 1/3 and 3/5. Again, you choose the type of model that you like best. We have to use the same size. Now this time we've got to divide them into 5 equal pieces. So we're comparing 1/3 to 1, 2, 3/5. And we see that 3/5 is greater, so we would, or 1/3 is less than 3/5. All right, that was a lot very quickly. Hopefully you took the time to work out these as best you could before we went over them. And if you have any questions, just message me and we'll work them out in a different way or slow down a bit so that you can understand them before tomorrow's assessment.